The little scroll thing is super sensitive, so it knocked it back like 100 places or something like that. So World War I, when they stopped fighting on Christmas, yeah, that's what it was. And that's what I was talking about. I was talking about that Christmas Day armistice in World War I, and it's a real famous story. If people look it up, it's actually kind of an interesting story, the way that played out. And I mean, I've heard it being told by there's a content creator named Aaron. His channel is 42. It's spelled THOUGHTY, and then the number 2. He's on YT, and he has a huge following. He has a mega account. But he tells that story, and of course he makes it a lot more dramatic and interesting and stuff, and he really brings the history alive and stuff. He's very good at that. I envy his teaching ability. That guy's amazing. See, before the server shut down, I just want to say thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in. I mean, I'm hopeful that I helped people. It's been the goal that I've had, is just to, if nothing else, explain some of this stuff, at least from my perspective, because I have a unique perspective over what you're going to get from a lot of the other accounts that are out there, and particularly the influencer type accounts, because remember, internet rewards consensus, and we've been over this in the past. It's a challenge because once you're rewarded for something, then you tend to want to do more of it, right? And when you subsidize behavior, you get more of it. There was I don't know if I told you guys about this, but there was Jordan Peterson talked about this a while ago, where he was relaying the story to a classroom and this is in his early work, his like super early stuff, back when he was doing like Psychology 434 or something like that on YT. So it was way before he was famous. And he was telling his class about this professor who the class did an experiment where what they would do is they would only pay attention to him or look at him when he went to like the left side of the room. But when he walked to the right side of the room, they just ignored him. And so, and after a time, I think it was like after a month or two, they noticed that the professor stood in the corner of the left of the room to do all of his lectures. They basically trained him to stay in the corner by doing that. And it was an experiment to see if they could pull this off. And yeah, so that was, this is what ends up happening with a lot of content creators, in my opinion, is that they start getting rewarded for pushing a narrative or talking about a topic. It starts getting pushed out algorithmically because it happens to align with, and this of course happens on, Birdsite a lot, because it happens to get pushed by the Birdsite owner a lot. And then other content creators start doing this. I can think of one off the top of my head, who I'm sure is a very nice man. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's sort of like, hey, you're rewarded if you push this narrative. So keep pushing this narrative, and I will reward you with pieces of paper that we've conjured out of nothing. Like what was it, Napoleon Bonaparte said that I've discovered a remarkable thing: men will die for ribbons. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, hopefully, so the perspective that I give, or that I try to give, is one of, I want to say in indifference to all of this. Like, yeah, I get a creator bonus from TikTok and everything. It's a couple $100. It's nothing huge. It's I pretty much just use it to pay for other social media. So it's like, just so that way I don't have commercials. That's kind of how I look at it. Just so I don't have to mess with all the commercials on it. And so for me, it's a zero-sum game. I don't get any big bucks from anybody. And that said, it's why I'm able to give you the sort of like this very rough, almost coarse and unlikable position on a lot of things. And make no mistake, I know I'm not exactly the most likable guy, and I know that. I've done that for a long time. But in any event, that's my long-winded way of saying thank you. Do you have former Birdsite? Yes. Financial Fizz, and it's PHYS because it's too long. I can't put physics in the whole thing because it's too long. So to you who was asking if I had Twitter, yes. And I was told, I've been trying to behave on the live streams because I was told that you couldn't mention certain stuff, and I guess nobody cares at this point. Like, what difference does it make? But still, I have been trying to. It's sort of like the cussing. I've been trying to not cuss as much. It doesn't work. I've been working on it. It's harder. It was easier for me to quit smoking than it was to do that, for me to quit cussing. So maybe the Uruguays are giving away for free. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Thank you to the hat. I didn't see what it was. Sorry. I was trying to read the thing and stuff. So whoever you were, thank you for the little deal that was there. Are you an economist? It depends. It depends on what you mean by economist. I don't have an answer. I don't have a canned answer for that. As far as if you're asking if I understand money, probably better than most. I'll leave it at that. Let's see. You can follow FP on YouTube. Yes, correct. Well, the volume. Okay, so look. Let me just explain this to Hard Rock here. Okay, so the volume issue is because when I record onto TikTok and then I download the video and I upload it elsewhere, for whatever reason the volume gets messed up on it, and I think it's because of just the way that the download happens, because of the compression, the file compression. But if I record them without using TikTok and then I upload them, the volume is much higher, and I'll work on that. The do-gooder, I have no idea. He doesn't even do finance. I have no idea what we're talking about here. Motivational coach, no, not really. Let's see, it's the pack leader. Yeah, the pack. Well, that's what I was talking about. Was that sort of alpha thing? The sort of the pack leader. World run by psychopaths? It is, yeah. I mean, whatever. You get no argument out of me on that. Economics similar to biology. Yeah, let's see here. You've been telling the truth since day one, thank you. At least the truth as I see it. It's the truth as I see it. So, I mean, someone else may see a different truth, and I tend to think that truth is singular and then everybody else has their version of it. But, be that as it may, it's still a thing. Let's see here. Hold on. They did it to me again. It's the money gun, like the Fed. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Let's see. Ask Brett to set up YouTube. Yes, I will. Thank you, Andy. See, we were in classic phrase the new president. Yeah, the meme coin. I'm trying to think of how I want to say that without getting the little notice from TikTok that says we're no longer promoting your account anymore on live streams. How do I say this? Yeah, that I don't know why he did that. I think that there are people that are in North Carolina that are living in tents. And I think that there's a lot of problems in the country right now. And I would say that that seemed to be kind of the last thing that he should have been really focusing on. It just seems like there's other things that could have been worked on than doing something like that. Good to see you here. I'm following you on YouTube. Just made a clapper count, but not actually. Let's see here. Nice motivation. Well, thank you. But anyway, yeah, thank you for following. I'm trying to follow some of make sure that I got all this stuff. We're going to miss you. Well, I'll miss you guys too. I'm going to go over. I'm going to try the other. I'll be on Red Note, and I am on Red Note actually. I mean, for those of you that are wondering something, yes, I am on Red Note. It's spelled. It's the account, the actual account, the real account that is not some parody of me that somebody is stealing my content and reposting it. The actual account that you can find me on is Financial Physic, and that's it. There's no S, so it's Financial Physic. But because of the character limitation, it cuts off the S. So that's how you'll know it's actually me. So if you're looking for the the real Slim Shady, that's where you'll find me. Well, nice quote. I don't know what quote, sorry. Rest in peace, TikTok. Yeah. Well, again, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe, it'll be resurrected or something like that. Call it Project Lazarus, TikTok or something. If this happens, insert your commentary. We'll look at. Yeah, I'm very much around. Like I said, I'll be on Red Note. I'm still very much on the other, formerly on Bird site and stuff. I'm still very much there. Let's see. Add live goal. I have no idea what a live goal is. Sorry, TikTok. Where are you based? Texas. I'm in South Texas, actually. So I'm down here with everybody near the border, kind of. So I'm in Houston. So, what models do you primarily like to stick to? I'm not sure what models you mean. Like, can you clarify what you mean by that? Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what we were referring to. Final words on what folks should do with their future in this alien environment. Have enjoyed you. Well, I guess that's not really final words. I guess we're going to see a transition of some kind. And I think that, by the way, I'll come back to this I just need to talk about this, just so I don't forget. I think that they may have made an error with this whole, I think this is a critical error to be banning something like TikTok. You have just really pissed off about 180 million Americans. That's a lot. And now you're going to have this huge migration over to another site. And of course, China is now trying to figure out how to deal with that, because now there's a bunch of Americans influencing their, and of course, once again, there's that comparison of notes. And I think that both sides don't want that. I think that both sides, or actually all sides, are kind of in the oligarchs all over the world, whatever country they're in. I think all these oligarchs all over the world are in a fight for their lives, because there is no way mathematically to keep any of this going. And once again, for those of you that have followed my work, for those of you who haven't, if you just happen to find this, I'm just pointing out, the numbers don't lie. The birth rates don't support any of this. And so I think a lot of these oligarchs are very much in a fight for their lives to try and figure out how they're going to keep something going that is mathematically not possible. It is not possible to keep doing any of this. It is going to come to an end. Now, when it comes to an end, I don't know. But I do think that you now have a lot of very angry people that are looking for an end. Not a day goes by I don't see somebody say, something like, and they're being serious. They're they're waiting for the economy, for the world to just collapse, so they don't have to go to work in the morning. And it's getting that bad. When you figure that the average person is starting to say, dude, you know what? At this point, I really don't care what happens. I'm just tired of all this. I'm tired of having to do tons and tons and tons of work, and I'm not getting any further ahead by doing this, because it's crippling their spirit. And it is. It is crippling. It's crippling to the spirit to do something like that, to do a lot of work. And it's one thing if you lose a game occasionally, right? So in other words, think of it like this. There's I'll invoke Peterson again, because this is where I learned it from. So I'll invoke it again here. And this is again back way before he was famous. He talked about rats, having a little fight and everything. The older rat would let the little rat win at least, something like 30 or 40% of the time. Right. And it wasn't even his study. It was a study that somebody else had done. And I do not remember the name of the guy, the researcher who did it. But they talked about this, that it was important that the little rat had to be able to win the fight occasionally. Otherwise, they just stopped trying altogether. We have a lot of people in the world right now that have been losing so much that a lot of people are losing hope, or are coming up on this problem of where hope is becoming in very short supply, right? Like real hope, not false hope, not a bunch of crazy gimmicks and everything, not meme coins, not any of that nonsense, but where people are starting to really kind of question what's the point of all of this, because everything that we're doing doesn't work. Well, no, it doesn't work because your currency doesn't work. Again, it's like your Sisyphus or whatever his name was, the guy pushing the boulder up the hill. Like yeah, you'll never really win that. So yeah, I mean, and that's really what's happening. So the final words that I would give, if you want to call them final words, they're not really final words, but to answer your question to the people, of how to deal with, the alien future environment that's coming. Keep your powder dry, for starters, but keep in mind that I think that people need to have work on putting together some kind of community themselves, right? The virtual community is really awesome, and it works for being able to communicate, and it's an incredible tool. It really is, but it isn't the total solution. It's a great communication device, and that's how I use it. But you need to have boots on the ground, and you're going to have people that are with you, that actually, and that's the hard part, right? Because trust is also in short supply. And trust is in short supply because of, once again, you have a lot of people that are trying to, well, the Soviets went through this. Who do you trust, right? Who's not going to sell you out to get a slightly nicer apartment, right? Yeah, that's a problem. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. The trick is going to be trying to find people that you can, that's the number one thing I would say. The number one thing I would say is if you can find people that you can actually trust. And that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be really, really, really hard to find. And not only not sell you out, but also be willing to back you up. It's one of the challenges that I've had with a lot of Americans. And I'm very honest about that. I mean, you guys see my videos. I got no problem at all. I pull no punches on that. When it comes to Americans, I think that a lot of Americans have abandoned their fellow Americans on many occasions. Many occasions, they don't back them up. The Americans right now, I mean, if you want some hardcore criticism about trust, there's a reason why no one trusts anybody. It's because you have TikTok, for example. I'm going to use this again, being banned. And you got a whole bunch of people who are like, I don't care. I don't use it, so who cares? That's not really the attitude you should be having. You really shouldn't have that attitude, because, see, then when something that you like or that you use is banned, then why would anybody back you up? It's the same thing I say to landowners. All the landowners that are out there that are like, well, why is nobody helping us out? Why is nobody backing us up to help us fight the man? On our property taxes. Why is nobody doing that? Well, it's because you didn't care about the renters. You didn't care about people renting. You just wanted to keep them renting forever so that you could make a bunch of money off of them. You didn't care. You didn't want countrymen. You wanted a meal ticket. Send this clip. Take this clip and send it to your rent seeker friends. All your friends that are all about rental properties and so on. Send it to them. I mean, I tell this stuff I have told this to people's face and said this stuff to them. That, yeah, dude, I mean, if you don't really care about your people in your country, then why should they care about you? See, so people used to do that. Americans used to care about that. They used to say, well, hey, I mean, it doesn't really affect me. But that's not the point. The point is that we, even Rand Paul today, he joined TikTok today, right, of all days. And he's like, I'm joining TikTok because this is wrong, what they're doing. Yeah. So even if you disagree, you can disagree with something. I don't particularly agree with a whole bunch of stuff out there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't use on the internet. I mean, dude, I couldn't even tell you. I know it exists, right? I know OF, for example, exists. I've never been there. Do I want it banned? Not really. Because I don't. It's just like if I disagree with people on TikTok. People can disagree with me all they want. The thing is if I disagree with you, I don't want you banned. I don't want your account shut down. Why would I want that? Yeah, see, that's the thing. And when you have this trust in short supply, well, it's because you've got a whole bunch, particularly Americans, and that's who I'm talking to. Brits also, to a good extent, too. And the rest of the English speakers out there, I would say the same thing. That when your trust is in short supply because you haven't backed anybody up. No one has backed anybody up. Even if you disagree with them, even if you don't like them. If I don't like my neighbor, now I happen to like both my neighbors, but even if I didn't like my neighbors, if their house is on fire, I'm going to try and help them put it out. Not even to be neighborly. Even if I don't even like the guy, I'm going to do that because I don't want to burn my house down. And I would hope that he would help me in return. That's the part that's missing. That's the part that's missing from it. So, if you're looking for the one like major piece of advice, that's probably the strongest piece that I could ever give you. It doesn't take a system. You don't need to have a government. You don't need to, you can have a government because people are going to institute governments anyway, but you don't need to have anything like that. You don't need to create like some kind of big, system, one of the isms. You don't need to do that. You just need to give a shit. That's the reality. So, let's scroll. They did it to me again. Every time it does it to me. Let's see here. Are you buying cryptocurrency? I do orange internet money. That's it. I don't mess with any of the other stuff. That's the only thing that I do and stuff. And I don't say the B word only because then algorithmically the whole account gets distorted if I say it. So, because in general, governments overall don't like the B word. And neither do most of the oligarchs, because once again, a finite currency such as orange internet money, a finite currency like that exposes all of the lies. It exposes it like nothing else. It absolutely exposes everything. It's like bleach to a virus, man. It exposes all of it, and it's like So yeah, it really is the case. Let's see here. What do you think of Web3? I don't know. I don't have an opinion. Same account on RedNote. Yes, it is the same account, except it's spelled differently. It's spelled financial physic, and it just ends no S. Just drop S off of physics, because RedNote has a 15-character limit, so it's all one word, financial physic. And that's what I went with. So, and let's see here. Texans just lost. You're talking about the football game? I'm assuming, because I wasn't watching it actually. I've been busy all day. You invest in stocks, mutual funds, crypto, real estate. Real estate to a very small extent, but only the thing is that my opinion on real estate hasn't changed in the last 20 years. The most people that are buying rental properties or commercial rental properties are paying way too much for these properties. They're paying there's too many middlemen. There's too many people in the middle of those transactions. Most cases, you're not dealing with the principal. You're dealing with a broker who's dealing with a broker who's, and you're not even dealing with the real principal. You're dealing with an assign. The real principal wanted, $100,000 for it. And then the next thing you know, you're paying $750 for it, kind of thing. Like, the prices have been too high, and there has been this ramp up of just too much lending into real estate, and it's pushed the prices beyond the market, what the markets can pay comfortably in rents. This is in a case for the for just the plight of the renter. This is me pointing out from a business standpoint that when you pay you make your money on your buy, not your sell. And when you pay that much money for a rental property, you then have to try and find a greater fool. Make sense? And if you are pricing yourself so far out of the market, then like with what's happening now, like even where I'm at, I see these houses that are sitting, they want like $2,800 a month for them. They've been on HAR for 312 days. That's ridiculous. So you've got a house you want $2,800 a month for it. It's been sitting for 312 days. You've been willing to go underwater $2,800 a month, or whatever it is that your house payment is. Why don't you just lower your price to meet the market? Because you're too far above market. That house is worth about $1,500 a month for rent, let's say. Okay, let's say that's market. So that means you need to shave your price, whatever, $1,300 to pull that off. Well, if they won't do it, there you go. So, and then as far as stocks and mutual funds. So mutual funds, are just, they're just shotgunning stocks. You're just sort of blasting money into the markets. I think mutual funds are a terrible idea personally. I think 401ks, the way that they're managed, are horrible. And I would say that the idea of investing in stocks, and I covered this in a video earlier today, in fact, about the stock market, the way that it's run. It used to be that you were buying shares in a company because you believed that company was going to actually had a legitimate product and a legitimate profit and a solid business model, right? And so during the dot-com bubble, for example, in like 2001, I think is when that finally popped there. So yeah, so I mean, I would be hesitant to just buy stock. I would own a piece of a company if I thought they were any good. But right now, I can't think of too many companies that I would actually consider to be reasonable investments, considering their prices and considering their business models. So that leaves us with, when you mention crypto and stuff, once again, orange internet money is kind of what I see, because it can't be. You can manipulate the dollar amount, but you can't manipulate the money itself. Let's see here. The government just united clans who didn't get. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, they did end up inadvertently uniting a bunch of clans that before that hated each other. It's weird. We have to figure out how to separate wealth from the state. That would be hard money. We'll do that faster than anything. True story. That absolutely will do it faster than anything. Because then it's like, if you're going to if you're going to try and bribe politicians, you can't just print it. This is always what it's going to come down to. Watch the movie Papillon. I don't know if anybody out there, if you ever watched any prison movies or anything like that, watch the movie Papillon, Steve McQueen movie. It's an old movie. It's a brilliant film, and it's the one movie that proved to me that Steve McQueen could actually act. Like he wasn't. In other words, he wasn't acting like Steve McQueen. He was actually acting like a character, and he did a wonderful job in this movie. And Papillon is it's based on a book, but it's loosely based. Anyway, the story goes that it goes to Devil's Island, which is a prison in French Polynesia, or no, not French Polynesia, French Guyana. Anyway, this is back in the day. He gets imprisoned there, and he has a friend who's a counterfeiter, and the counterfeiter just is the one who keeps kind of bailing him out, from some of his troubles with counterfeit money, and the reason he's in prison is because the same problem applies. Counterfeiting does an enormous amount of damage to an economy. What's an economy? It's just people. That means counterfeiting does an enormous amount of damage to the people. It's no different than if the story of Frank Abagnale is to be believed. If that's to be believed, let's assume, and I've read the book, but if that story, and it's Catch Me If You Can. The movie is called Catch Me If You Can. I think the book is the same title. If I remember, it's been years since I read that. But the movie with DiCaprio, if I remember right, it's Tom Hanks and DiCaprio. I think. Anyway, I saw the movie one time, but this is it. If that story is to be believed, if Frank Abagnale is to be believed, and that's all true, all he was doing is the same thing that the bankers do. He was just counterfeiting checks. Instead of counterfeiting banknotes, he was counterfeiting checks, which were at the time considered just as good as cash. So, and it caused all kinds of problems. It's just reality. It's fraud. That's all it is. Let's see here. Just got number 2. Oh, I don't know what a number 2 glitter badge. Oh, gifter badge. Something I noticed from TikTok. And let's see right here. Waiting and don't care. Let's see here. Peterson. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, I mean, you guys can laugh at Peterson all you want, but I mean, the fact is that, his early work was very, very good, and I really liked his early stuff. It was very on point, and most of the stuff that he talked about was pretty accurate. Again, we're talking about the psychological stuff. We're not talking about like all the rest of the crap that he got into later on. We're not talking about that. I'm just talking about the stuff that he talked about back when he was a professor at the university. Let's see here. Sounds like the other countries' economies lost. Maybe. I guess it lost compared to what? That's the problem. They're all printing money. Yeah, our big problems are not being solved because of the money block. Yeah, that's just it. I mean, politicians are going to respond to money just like anybody else would, right? People respond to money. They respond, and especially people respond to money for nothing. They respond to something for free. That's what they respond to, right? I mean, we've been over this, right? I mean, that's just physics. I mean, that's biology. People naturally are going to want to do the least and get the most. That is a normal thing. That's conservation of energy. That's a law of physics. After working 49 years, and thinking you were doing things right, and towards the end, turns out turns into this. Well, yeah, I mean that is a problem. It's a problem for a lot of people who are going through that right now, and. So the people who are, let's say that you're in your 60s or something now, right? You're in your 60s currently, and you're watching everything fall apart. Imagine how the younger people feel too, where they're watching everything for everybody else in the future. It's a train coming at you, this is bad, and yeah, this is why you don't want to do stuff like this, and it's why I've railed against the idea of fiat currency. As much as I possibly can, I rail against it because that's destructive than the neutron bomb. I mean, it is more destructive than any standing army that's out there. I mean, like any standing army. So that's just reality. Hello to Jacob. Identity politics have been used to divide. Yeah, they have. It's really messed up. They certainly have. I don't know why that happened either. The left went down that weird road of identity politics, trying to capture. I don't know what they were thinking with that. As opposed, the left thing is, the left used to have some good arguments. I mean, I'm no huge fan of Bill Maher, but I do think he gets it right occasionally. And the left used to have a few good arguments, like prison reform. And one of the arguments the left used to make back in the day, they don't anymore, is, dude, this is expensive. Who's paying for all of this? This is expensive to incarcerate all these people. How many people are incarcerated in the U.S.? Something like 3.5 million people. That's expensive to incarcerate people. And the left used to have a good argument for that. They would say, dude, look, did they do anything really violent? I mean, was somebody bleeding out of their eye sockets or something like that? Was it something that was violent? Was there an actual victim involved? Or is the state just angry about something, like a TikTok ban? Is that just, I mean, is there any actual crime here? Is there any, they used to make that solid argument of saying, dude, you really kind of need to kick these people out because it's expensive. People are having, taxpayers have to pay for all this, right? Property owners get to pay, everybody gets to eat all of this. And it's expensive to warehouse all these folks. No different than the illegals, for example. It's the argument I make back to the right when they talk about, this is going to be awesome. We're going to, if they're an illegal and they're here illegally and they commit a crime, we're going to lock them up for 10 years or something like that. At whose expense? No one ever pushes back on. To my knowledge, I'm the only one who pushes back on this. And I say, dude, hold on, stop. Who's paying for that? Because I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for them to be here for 10 years. No, we'll work them. You mean slave labor? Dude, no, you're going down a wrong road altogether with that. That's a bad idea. So what's the solution? Well, I know what the solution used to be back in the day when people did stuff like that. That was the solution back in the day, and then people didn't, they didn't do all that stuff. I'm in no way advocating for this. I'm just pointing out that it was a different kind of solution. It wasn't a solution of keep charging taxpayers more and more money. Once again, in a hard currency environment, none of that happens. None of it happens in a hard currency environment because people then can pick and choose what they want to pay for. And most of us out here are going to say, dude, I don't care about, whatever someone's doing in there. I don't care. I don't care who's sitting in their basement, puffing away, watching Family Guy. Dude, no, I don't care about that. And that's what would happen is that people would make those counter arguments because it would come out of their pocket. As soon as people have to pay for something, their attitude changes. As soon as they got to pay for something, attitude changes totally, right? It's all fun and games for people to say things like, "Oh, I want to have a bunch of laws," but as soon as you got to pay to enforce all of it and incarcerate people, and I send you a bill for that, then nobody wants that. Then they're like, well, let's maybe rethink. Yeah, exactly, because you got to pay for it. But if you have this delusion, this fake money, this dollars printed out of nothing, well, then you can just do whatever you want, right? You can just dream up all kinds of craziness. Anything that I don't like should be made illegal. And anybody accused of anything that I don't like should be put in jail forever, right? At somebody else's expense, right? You can just banish them to the phantom zone, so to speak, right? That's the argument that most people on both sides make, actually. It's why I hate both clans. On a level you can't even imagine. That's why I don't clan. And then on this, or anything, by contrast, anything I do like should be government subsidized. It needs to be a human right, and everybody has to pay for it, and they have to be happy about it. I just described like 99% of people at this point with those two statements, because that's how everybody operates. I watch what people do, not what they say. I don't care what you say. I mean, you can give me lip service till we both drop dead. Dude, I mean, that doesn't mean anything to me. What I care about is, are you doing what you said? Are you following through on any of this? And most people don't. I mean, it's the definition of hypocrisy and everything else wrong with humanity. So yeah, I mean, that's a way to look at it. And unfortunately, most people don't. They resist. Like, well, no, there is no. There is none of that shit unless you're willing to start paying for it. Unless you are willing to go out of pocket and start paying for all this, you really need to stop talking about it. You really need to stop talking to people about how they have to pay a bunch of money, or we need to. Oh well, it's no big deal. We'll just we'll pay for it by not having foreign wars. Okay, again, we shouldn't be paying for any of that either, right? Well, we'll stop paying for this and this. Again, we shouldn't be paying for a lot of that stuff to begin with. So it's like, how about you stop ripping everybody off and they can pay for their own health care, right? I mean, imagine that. I don't know anybody. I see these guys. I see the posts, $24,000, $25,000 a year in healthcare insurance. I'm like, dude, I don't think I've spent that on healthcare in my life. Like personally, I don't think I've ever spent that kind of money. Right? I mean, I'm talking about accidents notwithstanding. I'm talking about auto accidents. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking because that's auto insurance kind of thing, which is still a scam. It doesn't really work. The math isn't there. It's the same problem. It's socialized, privatized gains, socialized losses. But on an individual level, I don't think I've ever gone in and just said, hey doc, here's $8,000. Do blood work. Dude, why not? Well, if you're a doctor, I mean, I would assume you took some sciences. I assume you took chemistry. Why don't you do your own blood work right here while I'm standing here? I mean, they can change my oil while I'm standing there, right? I mean, I change my own oil, but I mean, in theory, when I used to go to Jiffy Lube or something like that, back in the day, before when I didn't have a place to change my oil, I can change my own oil, but I'm standing there, they can change it. Okay, why can't a doctor do blood work while I'm standing there? Just me. Or a peaceful, united world. We need to organize to have a no spend to shut it down. It'd be fascinating to see happen. We can't even get truck drivers to go off the road for 3 days. That's been another challenge. I mean, I hear this all the time from truck drivers. Truck drivers need to stop for 3 days. You'll never do it with the H-1Bs, because H-1Bs don't care. They don't care about your cause. It's one of the reasons why I have a problem with the illegals that I have. It isn't with the illegals. It isn't with the people. It's that they don't care about what Americans are dealing with. See, in other words, think of it like this. You're trying to put out a fire at your restaurant. You own a restaurant. It's on fire. You're trying to put the fire out right now. And a bunch of people come through the door and they start dinging the bell saying, I want service right now. I'm a little busy right now. What? Right? And then, and then they get all offended and indignant. Yeah, that's just it. It's that's what it's like. Americans have a lot of problems they're dealing with right now, and flooding the country with a bunch of legals or illegals. Doesn't mean H-1Bs or illegals. Doesn't make any difference. It's the net effect is the same. It does an enormous amount of damage when there's a bunch of Americans that are actually trying to fix a bunch of problems that are already here. We're trying to deal with a problem, and you adding a bunch of people, and driving, because again, what needs to happen is a work stoppage, for example. You're right. It does. It does need to stop. And it does need to actually remind everybody, in the so-called oligarch, sphere of, hey, dude, there's a bunch of people do all this work and you need to treat them better. That's it. It's not about gigantic mega pay. No. You need to treat them better, and they have to be able to at least function in the economy like normal grown-up adults, living their lives, right? Well, that's the challenge. And if you're just going to keep importing a bunch of people to keep doing the work, then how do you solve any of this? How do you actually get anything done? You can't. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And you could say, like, well, you're talking about scab labor or something like that for the unions. And so, like, yeah, the unions are a bit more complicated to go into. Let's move this over for TikTok. There we go. Thank you, TikTok. It's a little more complicated, but I mean, back in the day, that's kind of part of the issue, is that a lot of the people who were union negotiators or shop stewards, guys who did the negotiations, these were guys who understood this stuff. It wasn't about just arguing for like endless amounts of pay raises. That's what gets spun in the media. That's what gets spun up by the people who own whoever owns the printing presses for the newspapers back in the day. No, the reality is like, if you're going to inflate the currency, then you need to pay more because you're inflating the currency, right? And that's what ends up happening. So yeah, I mean, that's why I point out that the harder the money, that can't happen anymore. Then you can spin it all you want, but it's like, dude, I don't care. I don't care what you call me. I don't care what you spin. You can call me every crazy name in the book. You are either going to pay me, or I'm not doing the work. That's it. So yeah. And let's see here. We need to organize, have spent it shut. Yeah, that's where I was just at here. The when they came for me thing. Yeah, it's probably from a little while back when I was talking about it, but yeah, that's exactly right. It's people not thinking about that. Nice point, renting, only natural. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not saying that renting is inherently bad, and I'm not saying actually renting out a house is inherently bad. I'm not saying that. I'm pointing out that, like, you have to realize that that's usually a temporary situation, and you don't want perma-renters. You don't want a nation of that. That's a bad idea. You get a huge amount of problems when you have perma-renters. You want to have people that, maybe when they're younger, they're renting for like, maybe a year or two while they save money to buy. Now we've moved past that. And it isn't about avocado toast and lattes that's doing that. No, this is because, again, I mean, like, I'm a Gen Xer. I remember very clearly, in Seattle, by the way, not in some nowhere town that nobody's ever heard of, in Seattle, neighbors growing up in the neighborhood. And I grew up in the poor side of town, but even so, they could work at a guy could work at a gas station. Boomers could work at a gas station, and they were able to buy houses working at a gas station. So yeah, so that needs to be factored into the equation. And it's like, yeah, because when you pump all these values, these so-called values up, you just get perma-renters, and that's when they start losing hope. They start, like, people stop caring, and it eventually just deteriorates. And it just isn't as sure as night follows day. It's like a parent taking away a kid's toy. An overreach. Yeah, it is. It is definitely an overreach power. It's ridiculous that they've even considered this as far as TikTok bans concerned. That's absurd that they even did that. I'm surprised that they're apparently following through with that. The individualism in this country is killing it. Yes and no. That's the thing, is that you have individual rights, and those are recognized, but it takes a culture to keep that together. That's the hard part, right? You can have any civilization you want if you're willing to work, if you're willing to do the work to keep it. And part of that is having a culture. And if you can't have a culture, or if you can't hold together a culture, and it doesn't take lies, and it doesn't take religion and mysticism, it doesn't take any of that. It just takes an understanding that, like, hey, we want to be able to trust one another. And you're just not going to get that with a currency that's a lie, because as soon as you do that, it's just going to. I mean, it follows all the way right down the list. Number 1 is the currency. 2 is birth rates. Number 3 is small businesses. 4 is land and property ownership. And number 5 is taxes. And the number 1 is currency at the top of the list, because that's, as soon as you distort that, everything else doesn't really matter. You distort that, everything else just is gone. after that. So, yeah. Jonathan Rand Paul, I saw that actually. I reposted it. Come on, did it to me again. See if I can find it. If I know where it was going here. It was something about everybody's involved in prostitution or something like that. Like, well, yeah, after a fashion. Everybody's in prostitution. It certainly seems that way. It's definitely part of the deal. So when they came for the first group, I did nothing. It's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, and it's a shame. Trump is going to back crypto. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with that. I mean, the so-called strategic reserve idea. We'll see what happens with that. I'm curious. I'm very curious what happens with the strategic, the SBR, the Strategic Orange Internet Money Reserve. I'm curious to see. Now if it is, and I covered it before, if it is in fact they want to do something like, well, we want to have like 2 million coins or something like that, I would definitely not sell any of your coin, because if they're trying to buy it and you're not selling it to them, that does in fact shove the dollar valuation way up. And I would argue that, and you shouldn't probably, my opinion, just an opinion, is, don't try not to sell it for dollars. Try not to trade it in for dollars. Instead, say, hey, I'll trade it to you. I'll trade some of it with you, for like, I don't know, 640 acres of farmland or something like that. A section of land, freehold, no taxes, no nothing. And I get all the water and mineral rights, all of it. Something to that effect. Because if you're trading something that's finite, you need to get something that's finite. There's a lesson there. There's no real constitutional authority for the. No, there isn't. There isn't. And the government had a legitimately weak argument. It was all conjecture. It was all based on, well, if maybe someday. That was their argument, and it was like, well, it could possibly could, maybe. Yeah, that was a very weak argument. I'm surprised that I take that back. I'm not surprised at the way the Supreme Court ruled, given that, I mean, they're owned, clearly. I mean, see here, you said BC is one thing, it's the one thing that all government have in common. Like gold digger. Yeah, I mean, it is. They do. They are all gold. Let's see here. What exactly what exact? That's exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. Come on, stop. That's what happened in China. Yes, it's gonna miss these lives. Yeah, I know I will too. I'll still do them though. I'll probably, I'll do them on another. I'll probably do these. I'll probably switch, and I'll do them on the Bird site, or former Bird site. I'll probably do them there. Then I don't have to actually police my language as much there. They don't seem to care. So I won't have to practically break out into a sweat trying to keep it clean. Do you study international finance? Once again, I don't know what you mean by international finance. Are you talking about like the gold trade or something like that? I mean, there's just a number of different ways to look at that, at least from my perspective. Anybody elected to a position should be able to buy and sell stocks. Yeah, you just have to get past the proxies. So because that's the challenge with that. I mean, I know there's a bunch of guys virtue signaling on that, but they're just going to use proxies to trade around it, unfortunately. That's the sad reality, is that there is always a way around something like that. That's why those things don't typically work. What you're just going to have to do is, once again, go like Old Testament on everybody and just say, nope, hard money only, and that's the end of it. Every the country dealing with corruption, nepotism, authoritarian. Yeah, that's it. I mean, they all are. Dustin Hoffman was in fact in Papillon. Yes, he was the counterfeiter. Papillon's one of my favorites. Yeah, no, it's a great movie, and it's a fascinating study. The way, I mean, like, and it's as with all prison movies. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this. Let me give you a little trick. For those of you who don't really study a lot of movies or anything, let me teach you something. Most prison movies you've seen, in fact, almost every single prison movie, go find almost any prison movie out there. It is usually someone who has been jailed wrongly, or it's someone who is over jailed, right? They were jailed for something they didn't really commit. Like they may have been a criminal. So Papillon's a good example of this. The story basically goes that Papillon was in fact a criminal. He was, but not the type of criminal they made him out to be. It was actually a lie, and that's how these systems work. It's like the show trials in the Soviet Union, same thing. And so yeah, that is a real problem. And virtually every prison movie you've seen, and even prison TV shows like Oz, for example, there was a guy who was there for like DUI or something like that. Yeah, or you could look at The Green Mile. Same thing. John Coffey's not really supposed to be there. He's not really guilty of anything. And of course, Shawshank Redemption, etc. All of these movies, if you look at virtually everyone, An Innocent Man, I mean, I could go on and on. Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. It's all usually somebody who is wrongly jailed. It's never somebody who's rightfully there. You ever notice that? It's so that the audience can connect with it, because the audience never wants to envision it. They don't want to envision that. Once you get past that and you realize that no, you are a criminal there's in every stretch, like all of it, dude, there's 80 plus million laws on the books. If they want to find something on anybody out there, I assure you they'll find it. I assure you they'll find it, especially in the digital era, where basically every single keystroke on your phone, even comments you deleted, they're still there. They can still look. If they can find it. We talked about this with that Luigi character, right? With Luigi Mangione, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Yeah, I mean, like, dude, no, they will make up anything. They'll find it, and if they can't do it, they will make something up. But there's so many laws now that's all they got to do is just find something, and then you're a criminal. And then you're like, well, but I didn't do anything really that was really all that bad. Yes, most people in prison, that's the truth. The vast majority didn't really do stuff as bad as everybody thinks it was. It's how it's sold. Remember, it's all a marketing thing. That's why we have this, the war on drugs, for example. It's just a marketing thing. That's all it is. It's just marketing. No different than the dollar. The dollar is just a brand name. It's dollar brand, dollar bills. It's just a brand. It's just branding. That's why in every movie, every heist movie, they're all trying to steal dollars. It's a hustle. It's all it is. It's just to keep you chasing after dollars as opposed to anything that can't be conjured from nothing. The Amish have the right of it on this. The Amish, if you notice, don't chase dollars all that much. What they do is they chase things like land and families. Yeah. So, I have never seen the remake. I've only seen the original with Steve McQueen. I didn't even know they remade it, actually. Been watching you for the past year, and I've been telling everyone in Houston the U.S. dollar's fake. Yeah, I know. It's hard to get people to get it through their head, because they still say that they can trade it for something. It's weird how it works that way. Don't worry, the financial system will reinvent itself. Everything solves itself normally. Maybe I suppose that depends greatly on how long it takes, because at a certain point it doesn't matter. And if it's just because, once again, this is the other part, is that in the Western world, and I talked about this earlier. Somebody asked me about this, but I talked about this a few days ago. In the Western world, right, we have a birth rate issue. So at a certain point, it's not really going to matter whether or not the finances is so far gone. There's no way to fix it, right? Figure in another 20 years or so. For real, if the birth rates continue the way they're going, no, it doesn't make any difference if you fix it at that point. Because most of the people, there's not going to be enough people on the back end of that to really support any of it. So, there you go. Was it a 0-9 decision? Hold up. Maybe someone can. Seriously, was it a 9-0 decision? Can somebody confirm that? Because I haven't looked that up. Really? I mean, even that's even Thomas. Wow. Maybe someone can correct me on that stuff. But I mean, yeah, it's all 9 SCOTUS members. But was it a 9-0 decision, or was it like 5-4 or something like that? We're walking into recession. Okay, I think I'm back. Let's see here. Cash better than crypto? I don't know what cash means. Cash just means no debt. That's all it means. Let's see here. And exactly, it really hurts to see my kids' reactions today after thinking Dad did it right away. I'm sorry, you guys may be talking about a conversation with each other. Let's see here. Left became chaos. If you resist, yeah, I know. They went down this weird identity politics road. I don't know why that was just an ill-advised. I would have told them to stick with the solid arguments. But the problem is the solid arguments kinds of things. So, high tensile. I'm investing in high tensile strength rope. Yeah, no kidding. Number one rule in business, love the customer. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I mean, when you're small business, absolutely. Would XRP possibly be considered hard currency? It really depends. Is it open source? Can they add more whenever they want? That's the problem with Dogecoin. They even admit they can just add more coin whenever they need to. It's like, that's not a hard currency. If you can just add more, then why would you leave $1? That's all the dollar is. So when you look at XRP, which is in the news a lot right now, but if you look at it, you have to really research it a little bit and just ask: is it a fixed number, a fixed unit of measurement? And if it's a fixed unit of measurement, does it stay a fixed unit of measurement? Generally speaking, if it has a CEO, I avoid it. There's a reason before 1970s. Yeah, we're Republican. Yeah, Americans were largely Republican before the 70s, and then of course your boomers start coming of age, and I want to say you figure 1946. So by 1964 they were 18. So by the time the late 70s rolled around, boomers were pretty much outvoting their parents on everything just by virtue of the numbers. What does the future of work look like in 2 years? Well, if you're talking about doing the people that are doing the actual work, all the physical work, roofers will still have to show up and roof a house. Framers will probably still have to show up and frame a house. Concrete flat work guys are still going to have to show up and pour concrete. There's just no way about that. The guys who run the backhoe or the track hoe or the or the excavator, they're still going to have to show up. The guys who drive the semi trucks are still going to have to show up and drive the semi trucks. Now, as to who they get to do all that, that's another matter entirely. So that's just it. So the future. What does the future of work look like for Americans? Bleak if they get what they want. If the dancing monkey boy, America's favorite billionaire, gets his way, and they get to import a whole bunch of H-1Bs. Because and it has nothing to do with race. I've been very clear about this for many years. I wouldn't care where you were pulling these people from. Dude, no. Once again, the U.S. has a lot of problems. Chief among them are economic. Chief among them are economic problems, and we need to fix those issues first before you bring more cheap labor in here to drag wages down. Because Americans already can't make it. You have people who already are working full-time plus, and they still can't survive. And this tired argument that the boomers give, which is, just get a better job. The problem is even people who thought they had degrees and thought they were going to get a better job can't get better jobs anymore because they're flooded, right? Because there isn't enough demand to do any of that. Years ago, if you go on YT, you can find Financial Physics 7541. Scroll way to the bottom of all the videos I did, way, way, way down to the very first video. It's called the primer video. And there's 19 sessions of me explaining that in long form, which is a half hour each. Explaining dude, you eventually max out on all this stuff. It's just how it is. Sooner or later, you will max out. And there isn't enough. And at that point, that's when you're supposed to see the markets correct, right? Regression to the mean. You're supposed to see the markets correct. That's where things get cheaper. Then people are able to establish an equilibrium, and then you can have a renaissance after that. But you got to go through that first. But in order to go through that, the billionaires have to go broke. The bankers, brokers, boomers, billionaires, they all have to go broke. Okay, they all have to go broke in order for that to happen. They have to let the economy actually correct itself, but they're not going to. They're complete psychopaths, and that's just how it works. I just saw the article that said that like boomers are going to start moving in with their kids now because they're out of money. It's like, as a Gen Xer, you're going to allow that? My house, my rules. So I mean, you will eat your vegetables or you will get out. I mean, like that's like this ain't happened. I mean, just some people I know had really good relationships. I was thrown to the wolves personally growing up, so I never did. I've never gone into my background with most people, and I don't on purpose because it's not a pleasant story. Let's see here. Are American people fixing anything though? They're not going to be able to until they have unit of measurement. That's like, I mean, it's like asking 10 different people using 10 different yardsticks to build a house, and like, dude, come on, and none of all their measurements are off. No, nothing's going to be fixed. Nothing to be fixed until the currency gets fixed. That has to happen. And sorry, but the orange man isn't going to do that. I'd love to see it, but I don't think so. I mean, this whole meme coin thing that he did pretty much, I think, proves that, like, really, you really have no idea what you're going to do. I think you're just as clueless as everybody. And I think that on top of that, you've deliberately surrounded yourself with boomers and celebrities. That seems really bad. I mean, like, surrounding yourself with the who's who of daytime television and old washed up has-been actors, and then a bunch of fake billionaires. That's who he's surrounded. It's like, come on. Come on. So if it's fake currency that you don't see changing, how do we win with the cards we're given? Well, I mean, I've talked about it a lot, man. There was a reason you had a Second Amendment, and we let it go. People, I mean, actually, not our generation. I mean, that was the so-called greatest generation. Let that happen. The so-called greatest generation, which is probably, I mean, it's sad to think about it this way, but the greatest generation and the boomers are the two generations. They are the weak generations who created bad times. That's really what happened. That's how messed up that is. How does the saying goes? I'll get corrected, but it's like, the hard men create good times create, weak men, and weak men create hard times. The boomers in World War II gen are really the people that they were the weak men who created hard times. And I to be fair to the World War II gen people, a lot of them were busy fighting other people's wars, and we lost a lot of good guys in both World War I and World War II over something that the U.S. got nothing out of. We really didn't. We got nothing out of any of that. There was no point. There was no reason for us to be involved in either of those wars. And had we not gotten involved in World War I, then there wouldn't have been a World War II. So, yeah, that's just kind of how it works. But unfortunately, those generations sold everything off for paper dollars. They didn't even get magic beans. At least Jack got a beanstalk out of the deal. They didn't even get that. They got paper dollars and a bunch of inflation on top of it. So, and then it all taxed back from them. So it didn't even work. And it's because none of them were taught any of this stuff. They weren't taught like this is like, if I were a teacher in the early 1900s, I would be teaching this stuff to like 8-year-old kids in my class. Like, they would be knowing all this stuff. They would know all of this. By 8th grade, I mean, I promise you, they'd be shrewd businessmen, and there'd be nobody taking advantage of them. Because, I mean, that's just how it works. And when you don't teach anybody this stuff, this is what ends up happening. They don't know what they don't know. And they go into it believing, because there's this high trust society that used to exist. And so they just believe everything that they're telling them. So to answer your question, I mean, there used to be, there used to be a solution to it.
but we gave that up. Like, well, but we still have rifles and shotguns. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. That's no. What we don't have are Stinger missiles and Javelin rockets. That would make a difference. That would make a difference. Imagine 3 million really pissed off Americans with Javelin rockets and Stinger missiles. That makes a difference. Not this here. Imagine 50 guys with Javelin rockets. Just not 3 million, just 50. Imagine the chaos that could cause. It would make it a lot. It would certainly make the odds of it better, right? So, well, right now the odds are not in favor of anybody. That's just reality. And they can't have communication like this, which is why they're shutting it down. It's much easier to have bots on text sites, like Fedbook and BirdSite, where they can just have endless amounts of bots that are creating the illusion of consensus. Remember, the internet rewards consensus, so they're just going to create the illusion of consensus, and that's exactly what they'll do. So, but how do we win? Well, again, you're going to have to educate enough people to understand this stuff, and like I said, it's why I don't clan, because then I'm able to talk to anybody on both sides. It's why I'm able to talk to my atheists just as I'm able to talk to my Christians. Or the flat Earth people. I don't care if the Earth is flat, and I don't care if it's a ball. It really doesn't matter to me. We have bigger fish to fry for the time being. We can talk about that existentialist crap later on, but right now we have more important things to do. So, but until people are willing to get past all of that and then start saying, like for real, like, hey, it's going to come down to, eventually look, and you'll never get protests again, those big protests. And I'll leave it at this. The January 6th people, for example, got abandoned. Whether you agree with them politically or not, totally irrelevant. The American people abandoned those people. Those were your countrymen, and they were angry about what was going on politically. Right? And that, okay, so they are in fact political prisoners by definition. So the U.S. has taken political prisoners. Yeah, and they've all been abandoned, right? No different than Snowden. No different than, all these guys. They get abandoned. But, that's just it. They go, and once again, going back to our prison movies. What happens in prison movies? Right? The guy goes to prison and stuff, and they're basically gone from society. Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. That's most Americans right there. So there's no trust, there's no love, there's none of that stuff. You can't, remember, love is a byproduct of trust, and since you can't have trust, well, then there's no love. So there you go. Hope that answers the question in my circuitous way, but that's just how it is. If we could have any kind of unity, as knuckle dragging mouth breathers. Yeah, no kidding, huh? If only we could pull that off. It's possible. It's just it's a ton of work, and it requires people taking the time to talk to each other. And I don't think that they're going to. Taking the time to talk to each other, and I don't think that they're going to. Maybe. Yeah, we've got about 180 million Americans that use TikTok that are now kind of, aligned with each other somewhat loosely in their hatred of government, and rightly so. That's good news. The question is, how long will that focus hold? Historically, 3 days. Then they'll be on to something else. They'll be outraged about something. Somebody will post something. They'll be outraged. Guess we'll continue. This will continue. Other countries falling apart. Yeah, it'll keep going for a while. Oh, I lost my thing again. Little feed deal popped up on here. Hope is not the last. Last live. I hope not. We'll see what happens. Let's see here. Well, you're wrong. It's all about national security, the amount of ignorance on TikTok. I don't know what to tell you, man. If you really believe that. And whatever. Prisons for people that we're afraid of, not people we're mad at. Yep. Everybody's birth rates fail, West and non-West. Yeah, they are. Let's see here. It was a no contest decision or something like that. Really? Well, it was seriously 9-0. That's incredible. That's incredible. For real, whatever. let's see here. Global currencies. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that's a question or not, but I mean, yeah, global currencies. I mean, they're still fiat. They're still conjured from nothing. Supreme Court has never ruled against a law issued by the Senate. Yeah, I know, they probably haven't. What about aviation? What about aviation? We need more private aviation, I'll tell you that. But that won't happen because of the costs, unfortunately. We don't have, I mean, like boomers were the last generation who got to own like, private planes and so forth and go flying. I'm not talking about private jets. I'm not talking about that, Crystal Maybach, diamonds on your timepiece, Grey Goose nonsense. I'm not talking about that. No, but I mean like private planes, like Cessnas and everything. Like boomers are probably the last generation that can really afford to do that as a hobby. Aviation is an expensive hobby. And as far as like, if you're talking about the aviation disasters we've seen of late, I would chalk it up a lot of it to competency crisis, and I would suggest that my suspicion is that most of those accidents are going to come down to probably pilot error, like they usually are, unfortunately. Linemen still got to build. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. It's not 100% bullseye, but then again, keep in mind. Remember, for you blue collar guys, just keep this in mind. For a lot of you out there thinking that you're 100% got a lock, keep in mind, you are expensive, and if it comes down to you working at a company or that company paying shareholders, because remember, we have pivoted in this world to, it's all about the shareholders. It's all about the shareholders. They have to make a return under all circumstances, because otherwise, fiduciary responsibility laws kick in, and that's it. Then the company gets sued, and rather than the company, saying we're not doing that, we're not doing any of that nonsense. It's all about the shareholders. Otherwise, nobody will give them any money. Nobody will print money out of nothing. And that's how it works. So if it comes down to you or them, they're not going to send flowers. So I mean, just keep that in mind. You can flood any market. That's exactly right. Now, I've been teaching that for years, and I'm surprised at how many people that are teachers in economics that actually work in that field of economics, right? Who don't teach that yes, you can indeed flood absolutely any market. The last thing the U.S. needs right now, let's be real, would be like 10 million more engineers. That'd be the last thing the U.S. would need right now. Like, what are you gonna do? What are they gonna do? I gave the example a long time ago. How many on-site engineers do you really need? Not very many anymore. There's not as much building going on. How many soil engineers do you need? There's only so much soil amending you need to do. So, yeah. It's surely a big mess. Yep, it is. It's bigger than Trump. Well, I mean, the U.S. is. I don't know. It's not as big as his ego, though. His ego is bigger than the U.S. or the economic zone formerly known as the U.S. Let's see. It ain't gonna be great stuff. Let's hope we get some communist healthcare. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if people think it's bad now. Wait till the people that are there aren't being paid enough. Wait till the people that are there in healthcare are just checked out mentally because they can't do anything with any of the money they're being paid because it's worthless. Yeah, I mean, it's very destructive. It really is. You don't get it. You don't see his plan. Your house doesn't look like a billionaire home. Yeah, I don't have to tell you, man. If you're printing money out of nothing, you can make anything. You put enough MSG on a turd, it'll taste awesome, and that's Trump. I don't know how else to explain that, but you put enough MSG, you can put enough MSG onto a pile of dog shit, and it'll taste fantastic. So. Yeah, that's Trump, and I like at any point. I mean, like the thing is that this is, and I make this statement not lightly, but I would openly engage in a public debate with no notes against any of those, pick any four of your leaders, Musk, Trump, Vivek, that fast talking car salesman, and somebody else. Pick four of them, JD Vance. I'll destroy every one of them. Every last one of them. I don't say that lightly. Put it together. Somebody out there, you got a bunch of money and everything. You want to prove me wrong on that? Put it together, and I'll start cross-examining all four of them, and watch as they will not have answers for any of this. They will not have answers for any of this stuff because it's going to come down to the currency, and they're grifters. It's reality. It's reality. It's going to come down to the currency, and they're not going to have answers for this because, look at this. Think about it. Where would Elon Musk be without government bailouts and subsidies? Yeah, wouldn't exist. Wouldn't exist because of the laws of physics. His company wouldn't even exist, right? All this, all those lithium mines and what it takes to do that, to mine, to not just to mine lithium, but to refine it. Yeah, don't even talk about the EPA, or they care about the environment. Not when you're refining lithium. So come on. No. All these guys are grifters. They are. They're all grifters, and they have no answers for any of these questions. You start asking real serious questions, not this nonsense you get from CNN or Fox or any of these other fake, news organizations. Dude, or even Joe Rogan for that matter. No, you start asking real questions and start saying, let's start talking units of measurement. Let's start talking physics. Gone. They got nothing because again, math. Because math. I don't know how else to say it, but yeah, because math. Math eventually will indeed catch up, and the faster it does, the better. But as long as people are ignorant of math, it's no way to keep going with that. Free generation, not the strongest, not the greatest. Yeah, it wasn't. Let's see. I shudder to think how socialism in other countries are like in Canada and Britain. Yeah, they're just going to get worse. It's just, it's just again, remember, as everything, you think the competency crisis affects what you see now. You're seeing planes fall out of the sky. You're seeing pileups and pileups of more and more semi trucks, right? You're seeing that everywhere now, and it's becoming commonplace with all of this. The number of car accidents on the road are increasing everywhere. Competency crisis, there's no escaping that, and that is going to eventually spill over into medicine. That's just reality. It is going to spill over into medicine if it hasn't already. Just how it is, especially when you have everybody trying to just make money off of something as opposed to actually trying to fix something. Yeah, think of it that way. Think of it, you take your car to a mechanic and he does everything he can to try and make it the most expensive repair as opposed to just plugging in the wire that came loose, So, yeah. They'll just double down. Yeah, they will. They'll always double down. Just keep going. Just keep telling a lie. Keep going. A lie told often enough becomes truth. It's reality. That's why it's almost difficult to. It's almost impossible to take a Google search seriously anymore. Remember, internet rewards consensus. No different than the so-called community notes idea. Community notes is a clever idea, and then it's you're looking for the so-called wisdom of crowds, but that's still manipulated. You can still manipulate the data with that. There was a 42 video, in fact, actually, that was done a while back. You'd have to look for it. I couldn't even tell you about it. I can't find a link anywhere. I just remember seeing it. And where the guy was explaining that. He's there used to be something to the wisdom of crowds. But when you start manipulating it, then it changes everything. And that's what ends up happening. What's going to happen tomorrow? Oh, who knows? Let's see here. But hey, their hell still looks neat and tidy. I guess it'd be a way to look at that. Being should be currency. No kidding. We got control over the world seas from World War II. Yeah, I know, and that's really expensive too to keep all that, to maintain that control. They keep printing a lot of money to pay for that, and creating a lot of inflation as a result of that to keep paying for that kind of control over the seas. Aircraft carriers cost a fortune to keep afloat, especially when you have as many as the U.S. does. And they're building a new one, I think. I think there's a new one that they're working on. I don't know why. We're supposed to be at peacetime, but we're supposed to be at war with China, even though when they make our antibiotics. How are we at war with China when China makes our antibiotics? And that's not a national security issue? Yeah, does nobody think about that? Does nobody bring that up? Because am I the only one who brings that up? I can't be. I can't be the only one who brings that up. China makes all of our antibiotics. The U.S. doesn't even make a lot of its own medications anymore at all. But we're somehow in a war with them. And the national security threat is TikTok, not, hey, we need to start making making medications here in the States with American people. Sorry, man. That all of this for me falls on deaf ears. That's just ridiculous. So you have all this info. You didn't make yourself wealthy. How do you know? Why would think of it this way. There's a bunch of people out there who think that if I drove around in a $150,000 car I had payments on, and I had, I don't know, $50,000 wristwatch and was wearing all kinds of exotic clothing and so forth and living in a gigantic mansion that I can't afford and have to keep running scam after scam after scam to keep it going, to keep the Ponzi scheme going, that's considered successful. I would tell you to rethink your statement, because who knows? You have no idea, and and neither does the government, right? My coat. I will tell you this: my closet does not have a full length chinchilla coat in it, and I don't sit ringside at some fixed fight between what's his name, Tyson, and Jake Paul. Yeah, so. Let's see here. I'm getting FedBook, IG ads on my FYP. Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Bring back tar and feathering. Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it, especially nowadays, because people they wouldn't use tree sap. What they would use is actual tar. It'd be pretty funny. That'd be awesome to watch that. Let's see. Socrates had a lot of knowledge. That's why they killed. Yeah, that's exactly right. Seem well read. I try. Let's see here. Does liberalism just exist in the conservative environment, like a parasite? Kinda. I mean, it's any of the isms. They're systems of control. I've been over this on many occasions. Anything ism is a system of control. It's just a system of management. Communism, socialism, fascism, capitalism, communism, like all these isms. These are just systems of management. They work on certain people. They're farming techniques. I've been over this and over this and over this. There's farming techniques. They work different on different personalities and different people, but they're farming techniques. They're used by the farmer, the people farmers, the human farmers, and they work with some people. They just like if you're a cattle farmer, you use cattle farming techniques, cattle prod and, little, blue heelers to run around and herd cattle and so on. That's what you use. You use herding techniques for cattle. If you're growing hydroponic broccoli, you're not going to use a cattle prod for hydroponic broccoli. I'm not sure what you would think you would achieve with that. No, you're going to use a different kind of farming technique. If you're raising chickens, you're going to use a different kind of farming technique. Think like a farmer. Put yourself. Think. I mean, try to be evil. There's a soundbite for you. Try to be evil. Try to think as evil as you possibly can. Try to think as evil as you can possibly make yourself. And say, how can I enslave people to get them to give me everything and I give them nothing? Think like that for a while. Think like that for a long time, actually. In fact, do that for 2 to 3 years. Serious. Think like that for 2 to 3 years. And then eventually, you'll eventually come back around and you'll realize, like, oh, okay, hold on, none of that's actually workable. No, it's not really workable long term, but you can learn to think like that, and that's how a lot of these people think. But you can think like a farmer. Imagine just being completely, amoral about the whole thing. Take morality completely out of it. It's one of the toughest things that I would try and teach, particularly Christians, is how to think amoral. See, I can this is just it. I can teach an atheist to think like a Christian. I can't teach a Christian to think like an atheist. That's the problem. And that's why Christianity is doomed, by the way. For real. I mean, for the you Christians out there, that's why Christianity is basically doomed. Because you can't think like an atheist. You can't think like hyper immoral. You're not thinking like that. You need to think more like that. And then it's much easier to realize what's actually happening. As soon as you can think like that, and you can put yourself in that position, and not just put yourself in that position, you have to put yourself in that position and enjoy it. Not just in some abstract way. No, you actually have to enjoy that. You have to enjoy that idea. Once you get it down into your marrow, then you can really, you search inward. You find out who you really are as a person. Once you do that, it will change you. It will change your entire perspective on everything. It'll change everything about you. I mean, so be warned, because there's no going back. If you actually do that, if you actually look inward deep enough, And most people will never do that. Some people will check out if they do it because they can't live with themselves. Like, yeah, some people will do that. And it's you run the risk of doing that, especially if you go deep enough. But I mean, once you do that, and if you successfully make it back out of that, it will change you. It'll change your perspective on everything. It doesn't make you perfect. It just means that it will change who you thought you were. And you'll start thinking about it. You'll start seeing things a little differently. And one of the things you'll start seeing differently are the people who rule over you. You start seeing them the way that you would have behaved. And you start looking at yourself like a human farmer, as though you were a slaver and you are doing all of this. I mean, Hollywood ruins people's perspective of what slavery is. It's like, oh, it's beating with this and so forth. And it's Django Unchained. It's like that. Dude, that's like complete crap. That's total fantasy nonsense. Okay, because all the characters look good. They're always good looking people. It's just like what do they call, like apocalypse movies, post-apocalyptic movies. Everybody looks good. Everybody has clear skin, the whole bit. Go watch Threads. Go watch The Road. Go watch those two movies. Threads, 1984, I think, is when it came out. Go watch that. There's a post-apocalyptic movie. Watch it before bed, in fact. Same thing with The Road. Watch that before bed. It changed your perspective because that's just it. It's usually, those are fantasies. Those are nonsense fantasies that Hollywood perpetuates. No, the real reality that's out there is much worse. It's multiples worse. It's the island people. How do you enslave rich people? You get them to go to the island. I can't talk about the rest of it on TikTok. On X, maybe I'll do one of those at one time. But I mean, like, dude, that's the reality. That's how you do this kind of stuff. So think like that for a while. It'll change everything. And, that's all I have to say on that topic. I'm going to miss you. I would have, let's see here. Would have never found you on. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm there. I'm not on Twitch, but I am on YouTube. Let's see here. You have to wait for a manufactured war to start, like Stalin. Yeah, no kidding, huh? We'll see what happens. Hold on. I lost the thread again because of all this. You guys are all arguing among yourselves. I'm not trying to keep up. I'm not trying to get in the middle of your conversation. Really enjoy these lives. Are you going to try and do something? Yeah, again, I mean, on X, on Birdsite, you'll find me there and stuff. So if you look at Financial Fizz, PHYS, and I will try to bring myself to do lives over there. I've done a few of them. I usually just do them randomly, but I've done a few, and so I'll try and do some of those over there. And those are a little easier to do, I guess, because I don't have to worry about my language quite as much. Most raw ingredients and supplements and pharmaceuticals important. But yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I mean, hey, if you're actually at war with any of these countries, why exactly are you having them make all your stuff? That's just crazy, right? That's just nuts that people would even do something like that. So yeah, the argument doesn't hold any water. The argument holds no water with me. Wealth is in your heart, not your wallet. Yeah, it can be. Depends on the wallet, I suppose, if it's off the internet. Story of Your Enslavement. It's a great video. Molyneux did a great job on that. It's probably, I want to say it's probably that's like his magnum opus. I want to say that it's like a 12-minute long or 10-minute long video that is absolutely spectacular. I mean, if there was an award for something like that, I'm sure he would have won. I mean, nobody wants the topic, the subject matter, but yeah, that was probably the single best piece of 12-minute sermon, for lack of a better term, that could have ever been. I mean, I don't think anyone could have topped that. I mean, like, it was just absolutely wonderful, the way that he put that, because it's the truth. And that's often how I thought about it. And when I saw that, I'm like, dude, he nailed it. He nailed it like no one I'd ever heard before. Like, I'd never heard before. It was absolutely perfect. It was pristine the way that he nailed that. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, look up, and you cannot find it on YouTube anymore. It has been scrubbed from YouTube. You will have to go to probably BitChute to find it. but there is a just type in the story of your enslavement. It is a modern day philosopher who breaks down the human farming aspect of it, and he does it like nobody I've ever heard. It's absolutely spectacular. So if you've never heard it, I strongly recommend to look it up. It's like a 12-minute video or something like that, and it's got a bunch of stock footage and so forth in it. But no, it's a brilliant piece of work. And it's called Inflation. Money's worth less, exactly. For a while, it seems like the government was pushing so hard so that the people would push back. It's it's definitely got shit test vibe. There's no question about that. It definitely has that. It has that vibe of like, when you're most of the people who follow me are guys, so let me talk to guys for a second here. You know how like you're dating some girl or something like that, and she's like she's testing you to see what makes you angry, to see what gets you like all riled up and everything like that. Yeah, there's definitely that vibe, that we're getting from this government. And yeah, and to be honest, my opinion has not changed on this, and I still am indifferent to what happens if this actually does finally break, and it does go. That's it. We're done. We're done with the island people. We're done with all of their enforcement people. We're done backing the blue. We're done supporting the troops. We're done with all of this. And like if you are in our way, we are rolling over top of you. I am still indifferent to all of that, even at this point, because like, dude, you guys have brought this on yourself. If it finally does break like that, and the people roll over top of you the way that they should have done probably 35 years ago, I cannot. I will not be able to feel bad about it at all, just because, I may detest the stench of corpses, hanging from the light posts, but I cannot say that I will have any kind of, empathy for it at this point. I will be indifferent to their plight because, like, dude, you guys have brought this on yourself. At a certain point, people do eventually have enough of it. And historically, that does happen. And you could say, like, well, they could threaten to nuke everybody and so on. Let them pull the trigger. I say do it. Do it. Do it. Call their bluff. Do it. Let's see, amazing. Yeah, it is. It is amazing nothing's happened yet. It really is. Just look at the celebrity status of Luigi. That should tell everybody something right there. That type of celebrity status. Now, it's going to be almost impossible for anybody to get even within range. Let's talk logistics. It'll be near impossibly within range of almost anybody now, because of that. Because now it's like, yeah, especially, he was what, 15 feet away, if that. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen again. They're not gonna be there. You're gonna have to actually deal with the. I would suggest this: if you wanted an easier target, if all of you wanted easier targets, you have to target the people that are protecting these people. That's because they're easier targets. So, let's see here. Well, as long as an atheist had a Christian background, I think we're okay. I don't know. I'll do a video on that some point. It won't be posted here, but maybe tomorrow or something, I'll do a video on that. I had somebody else ask me about that. And I did do a video a long time ago. You could scroll through TikTok and find it. I think I did a video, this is like 6 months ago. It'd take you a while to scroll back. But it was specifically sort of my views on Christianity itself and everything. Not Christianity as a religion, but the teachings of Josh. Josh's teachings, which were actually mind-bendingly brilliant. And they really were. They were absolutely mind-bendingly brilliant. Not just for their day, but they are still relevant to this day, and people still talk about them. So yeah, most definitely. Hopefully now that we can't afford bread, they're taking away the circus. Yeah, I know. And that's just it. I think that's actually a calculated. I think that's an error. I really do. I really think that's an error that they're making, because, like, okay, you're going to take away the bread now. You can't afford the bread now. You're going to take away the circuses. You're taking away the distraction. Before, people were distracted by TikTok craziness, right? They were just, dancing kids and Tide Pods and all that craziness. Like, that's what everybody was distracted with. The sort of the freak show of the internet, right? The freak show that is the internet. That's what people were distracted with. Well, if you take that away now, Yeah, no, and now they're going to go. Of course, a bunch of people are going to migrate to these American sites, like FedBook and X and so on. And like, well, yeah, I mean, and those are all controlled. They're going to control the narratives. They absolutely will control all of that. Remember, the internet. If you take away nothing I said, just remember one thing: the internet rewards consensus. Just if you remember nothing else I say, the internet rewards consensus. Well, that and the number one is currency, birth rates, small business, property ownership, and taxes. So 2 things. If you remember those things, those are the only things that I would tell you. If you can keep that stuff in your head and ponder those things and remember that the internet rewards consensus, that means to take basically about 80% of what you see on the internet with a complete grain of salt and just don't believe hardly almost any of it, particularly the comment sections of a lot of stuff, because a lot of engagement farming, fake engagement farming, stuff like that. I mean, I would be really cautious about that. I mean, I understand people want to be anonymous when they want to make some kind of comments because they might have a job or something like that they have to be anonymous about. But you have to be kind of careful with how much of that you believe. The way the money works is slaves. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's just inflationary. Hey, what was that movie from the 80s that... Threads. So there's 2. If you want to be traumatized, if you want to be disturbed, then yeah, there's a movie called The Road, which is a book by Cormac McCarthy. And Cormac McCarthy also wrote No Country for Old Men. He wrote the book No Country for Old Men. Then he wrote the screenplay, and then he wrote the screenplay, then he wrote the book, and then the book got translated from that back into a screenplay by the Coen brothers, which is why it's actually a brilliant film, because it went through so many different layers of creativity, which is why that film is studied, even to this day, by people that really study movies. It's because it went through just layer upon layer upon layer of writing creativity, and that's how they came up with that. I mean, I could do a whole dissertation on that film because of its brilliance. But they also, Cormac McCarthy also wrote a book called The Road, and it's a sort of this post-apocalyptic world with this man and his son, and that's really it. And it's just sort of, and it feels like it kind of goes nowhere, but it's definitely telling a story, and there is a point to the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely. It changes your perspective of what you think like a post-apocalyptic world would be like. Again, a lot of us have this fantasy land of what, the road warrior kind of thing. No, imagine, the road warrior, but the guys are not trying to catch you for fuel. They're actually trying to catch you and eat you. Right? I mean, cannibalism is a really serious thing. And in both movies, for example, whether it's Threads or The Road, I mean, like that is actually, I mean, like both of those things are addressed. Book of Eli is another good example that it's a little bit more polished up for a post-apocalyptic movie, but it does at least deal with that problem, with the problem of the people, of ignorance. People don't know what they don't know. A lot of them don't know how to read. All that kind of, like, there is really a big problem with that. So it's like, and so there's, I guess you could say there's 3 movies, though Book of Eli is a bit more entertaining, right? Threads is a docudrama, and it's meant to be taken seriously. And yeah, again, like I said, if you want to be a little disturbed by a film, it's pretty disturbing because it approaches it from a nuclear holocaust, but you could take the nuclear part out of that, and it's still just as relevant. Because again, especially if you lose something like, something as valuable as electricity. Just like all the people who say like, oh, well, orange internet money goes away if the electricity goes away. You have much bigger problems, my friend. If electricity goes away in the world, you have much bigger problems than money at that point. Way bigger problems than money. We are being co-opted. Yeah. And replaced. That's reality. Co-opted, replaced, whatever you want to call it. Odyssey or BitChute. Yeah, exactly. Odyssey or BitChute has it as well. So it's probably also on Rumble, I'm guessing. But yeah, it's brilliant. And so, I mean, if people are looking for 12 minutes to like really be stunned by something, it's great. It's really awesome. People are already getting knocked off. Yes, great. Yeah, probably. It wouldn't surprise me. What are you talking about? Just got here. There is a whole bunch. I will download this. I'm actually going to start winding this down, but I will download this and I'll repost this entire live onto my YouTube channel, Financial Physics 7451 on YouTube. I will repost the whole thing, so the whole thing will be there for those who want to deep dive on it, and or if you're like have a long trip or something like that, or my truck drivers out there who like to listen to stuff while they're driving down the road. They want to listen to boring stuff like this. Am I talking about politicians? I did talk about politicians. I had nothing nice to say about them. Go figure. Building killdozers, man. I mean, if only Komatsus were cheap enough that people. The thing is that even if people could afford to buy a Komatsu, where do you build a killdozer anymore? Most people don't own 2 acres. I think Marv Heemeyer was on 2 acres and he had a shop, and that's why he was able to do all that. People don't even own it anymore. They don't even own 1 acre now, and 1 acre would be all you would need actually to have a house and a shop capable of building killdozers. I'm just telling you, that's what it was, I used to own a house that was on an acre, and it was, most of the neighbors had these big shops where you could build and you could put your RVs in there and everything, and, put a 40 by 60 pole building up. And Komatsus will in fact fit in a 40 by 60 pole building, no problem. I became enamored with No Country for Old Men and watched it through in the audiobook. Yeah. I mean, it is definitely stuff to think about. It definitely changes your mind about a lot of things. No question about that. And I noticed a lot of white young people converting to Islam. Yeah, I mean, it's because remember, I mean, you have to figure. I mean, like they're going with what's popular, and if everybody's doing it, I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's difficult to stand against a large crowd. It is. I know what I'm talking about on this one. Like, I don't clan. Doesn't mean I can't respect other people's religions or beliefs or anything like that. Doesn't mean I can't even take part in celebrations and stuff like Christmas or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to like not be pulled in by the crowd, especially by what's popular at the time. It's really just kind of how it works. So, let's see here. I got a 50 by 72 by 16. Yep, and 400 amp service. Yeah, I know. No kidding. You have 3-phase. Do you have 3-phase though? Because that's the important one. That's what I need actually. Is 3-phase. They told me it was going to cost me $650,000 to get 3-phase to my property. I said I'll get back to you. The ignorance is maddening. Yes, it is. Okay, so that's probably about it. I think I've been talking for something like. What do you have against engineers? I have nothing against engineers. I did use them as an example. I could have used doctors too. Any of it would have applied. You could use just about any profession out there. That at a certain point there is a flooding that happens, and 3-phase. 122. Yeah, that's nice and cheap to work with, especially for your CNC machines. So yeah, 79 a D8. Yeah, that's a good one actually. You could probably put you could actually do like a sand crawler thing, from like Star Wars or something out of that. I always wonder why somebody didn't build one of those. I always wonder why somebody didn't build like the Jawa sand crawler things. I guess probably where would you drive it? I suppose, but I think that would be that would have been pretty interesting to see if somebody could actually pull something like that off. I wonder how fast you could get it to go, too. I would think if you actually drove something like that and you got it up to like 35 miles an hour, that would be terrifying. Anyway, so I think that's about it and everything for tonight. Guys, it's been, it's been emotional, I suppose. It's been interesting. And other platforms, you can find me if you so choose. So take care and have a great night.